You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockholds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 17 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockholds, and I am delighted to join on the line Tom Hiscott, the editor of the Western League Bulletin. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Looking forward to Christmas, getting close, obviously, and yeah, plenty of football to talk about. It's good.
There certainly is. I got my tree up at the weekend.
Oh, you're ahead of me.
Well, I highly recommend going to one of these Christmas tree farms where you actually pick your tree and chop it down, because I think that cuts out the middleman, and you probably save yourself a good tenner.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I was definitely on there. It's on the to-do list. That is
yes, that's my top tip for Christmas tree purchasing. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Western League football. Yeah. We've got two interviews this week on the Western League podcast. The first is with Andy Black, the manager of Cadbury Heath. We're also speaking to Jared Greenhalgh, the manager of Welton Rovers, as well, for our first division interview. We start off this week's podcast by taking a look at the fixtures that happened predominantly on Saturday the 7th of December, but we are going to kick off with a bit of Friday night football. So this is Friday the 6th of December, and it was a North East Somerset derby, if such a thing exists. Radstock Town the Miners took on Bishop Sutton. A reasonably healthy crowd of 78 saw this one, Tom, and it was an emphatic win for the home side.
Yeah, strong second half performance helped propel Radstock to a fifth league win out of the last six. So they're in tip-top form, just coming up to the festive period. 5-1, as I say, over Bishop Sutton. First half was a bit of a quiet affair. Jack Biddiscombe, his header was the only thing that separated the sides at the interval. But then, after the break, Radstock came to life. Morgan Marsh and then Morgan Skip, so the two Morgans, putting them 3 goals to the good. Bishop Sutton then pulled a goal back, but then it was James Rustall, top scorer for Radstock, prolific, and he hit a penalty to make it 4-1 before substitute Rico Sobers added a fifth 10 minutes from time to wrap up the victory.
Now, moving on to Saturday the 7th of December, we start our roundup in the Premier Division. Brislington, of course, who've been going very well, took on Tavistock. Tavistock looking to make up ground after their very good showing in the cup competitions, and they did exactly that just on the outskirts of Bristol. If we thought Radstock against Bishop Sutton was emphatic, then really Tavistock put this one to bed in quite incredible style.
Yeah, I mean, from memory, they've had some big wins in the cup, but I think this might be their first high-scoring league victory. A 7-1 triumph away at Brislington, so a fantastic afternoon for Tavistock. 23 minutes had gone, goalless before Tavistock really shot into life. A couple of quick-fire goals from Jordan Anir and Josh Grant, putting them 2 goals up. Nikel Plummer did then actually pull a goal back for Brislington. He was having a good season in front of goal. But then Grant and Jack Crago scored just before the break to make it 4-1 and pretty much put Tavistock out of sight. Then they continued attacking after the break, and 3 further goals. Dan Evans, Callum Watson, and then Crago completing his double to make it a 7-1 victory for Tavistock.
Another big away win comes in our next featured game. Cribbs were at home to Clevedon Town. Now, of course, Clevedon have been doing very well. They're up to 3rd in the Premier Division following this victory. And again, another emphatic win for the visitors. Yeah,
another really good performance by an away side, which is it's good to see. And it was Archie Ferris, very much the standout performer for Clevedon. He fired in a hat-trick for the away side. And there was also a long ranger from Zach Drew, which drew rave reviews. So making it 4-0 during the second half, and that was Clevedon added a fifth, and that was it, a 5-0 victory away at Cribbs.
Now, our next feature game covers off Roman Glass St George, which is a side that I talk regularly about on the podcast as being one to watch. They were coming up against Bitton. Now, the form guide would suggest that Bitton, of course, we all know their pedigree, should be walking away with this game against the side down in 17th. And frankly, Tom, I was getting bored of telling you how Roman Glass is going to come good every week, because I know their results in the last couple of weeks haven't been great. But on this occasion, I was proved right.
Yeah, indeed. A really good performance from Roman Glass, but it didn't look good from the off. They fell behind in the second minute of the match. Matt Groves putting Bitton ahead. Roman Glass, to their credit, managed to fight back, getting back on level terms from the penalty spot through Ryan Radford after he'd been fouled in the box. It was then Troy Simpson giving them a half-time lead with Liam Harding, then adding a third after the break and completing the comeback. A 3-1 win for Roman Glass over Bitton.
Very impressive result there. Continuing our theme of big away day victories, Shepton Mallet travelled down further into Western Somerset to take on Wellington, and it was another emphatic away victory, Tom.
Yeah, indeed, it seemed to be the theme of the day, big away wins, and Shepton were among that trio of teams that did so. Jack Fillingham, he started to find form again. He scored twice after the break to extend their advantage after a pair of Daryl Charman headers put them 2 goals ahead at the interval. And then Fillingham, after scoring twice, provided the assist for Joe Morgan, who made it 5 late on. So a really good away performance from Shepton Mallet at Wellington.
And finally, in the Premier Division, Westbury United took on Cadbury Heath. Now, Cadbury Heath find themselves down in 14th position in the Premier Division. Not been in a great run of form, although things did improve in the week when they had a good win over Roman Glass on Wednesday. They took on Westbury, not quite the force of last season, but still top 10 side in the Premier Division. But really, the home side were left, with nothing at the end of this particular game.
Yeah, I think we can call them resurgent, Cadbury Heath. A real good upturn in form. Another away victory, 2-0 over Westbury. Obviously, as you said, beat Roman Glass earlier in the week as well. So a good couple of days for Cadbury Heath. Ennis Atkin, he was the star for them. He scored the opener after 31 minutes to put them ahead. And then he provided the assist pretty late on to help wrap up the victory. Ben Allen scoring the second goal to stave off a late fight back. So Westbury 0, but Cadbury Heath 2, and as we say, a couple of wins on the bounce. First time this season they managed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Back-to-back wins against Westbury and Roman Glass, and I thought this was a great time to get in touch with Cadbury Heath's manager, of course, a very well-known and very well-respected manager on the Western League circuit, Andy Black. And I started by asking him whether, after those 2 victories, his side had turned the corner this season.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, it just comes with hard work, really, because we've struggled at times, and at times we've been outclassed by teams. You got to keep believing and keep working hard, and hopefully you can get your just rewards. Because we went to Bridport the other week, and we just didn't perform. It was abysmal, to be honest. And I said a few choice words after the Bridport game, and we have come out fighting after that game because the St George game, it was a good performance by us, and Saturday it was. It was a great win for us. Obviously, we had a bit of rub of the green, but in saying that, we had a lot of chances as well Saturday at Westbury. So, and some of the young lads have come in of age.
Because Westbury's not an easy place to go, is it? They did ever so well last season. I know they're not going quite as well this season, but still a very difficult place to go. And perhaps from your perspective, was it even more pleasing that you managed to get the clean sheet?
Yes, it was, but like I said, they had a lot of chances. They didn't take theirs, and we had a couple of chances, and we took ours. And it was good for the lads because after a tough game like Wednesday against St George, and we hung on for the 2-1 win. And obviously going to Westbury, obviously they're a strong unit. And it was more a surprise and also a boost for the lads because you've got to be competitive, and we have been in games this year where we haven't been competitive, but the last 2 games we've been hugely competitive. So hopefully we're turning the corner.
Well, I'm interested to talk to you about that game against Roman Glass because the other managers that I've had on the podcast this season have said that Roman Glass, they've put together a very competitive side. So obviously you got the win against them. But I mean, what did you make of them when you came up against them?
We wanted to win the game more than they did. I think we had more desire in our group, and they had spells where they got on top of us, but. Overall, I thought we worked really hard, and they have got some talented players. But, I thought we wanted to win more and had more desire than they had.
Now, you've had good results, draws against Shepton and Clevedon and Hallen, of course, not to mention Bridgewater as well. So that shows that you've been competitive this season. So, I mean, how do you reflect on your league position at the moment? I mean, you're in the bottom half. Is that a fair reflection, do you think, on how the team have performed?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think the league table doesn't lie. We are where we are because we're not consistent enough. When we come up against big, strong sides like Parkway and Exmouth, we've struggled. There's no two ways about it. And, we put in a good performance, like you said, against Clevedon. Should have won the game, couldn't hang on. Because going forward, we're as good as anyone. But the midfield's been a bit frail, and so's the defence. So it's in areas we need to work on. But, hopefully, we've got Buckland Saturday. They come to us. So if we can keep the form going. And I've got a couple of players coming back as well, so that's pleasing as well because we haven't got that many experienced players at the moment in our group, so we could do with a few more. This isn't the first time you've come on the podcast. I know you've been at Cadbury Heath for a while. So, in terms of your expectations for this season, what were you targeting? Well, I was targeting at least mid-table. It has been a tough season for us, we cannot lie. We haven't had any good cup runs. But we are developing a lot of players, a lot of young players in the group, and I'm sure they'll, I think it's great reflection because when you look at it in football, you have good times, you have bad times. And I think it means more to you when you've had a bad time, when you had a good time, because it'll turn it round. You can turn it round and you keep working. There's a lot of lads there who are starting to believe in themselves. Now, you mentioned before you've got Buckland at home. Yes. We lost 2-1 away there about a month ago. Well, if you played them a month ago, I think that's probably when Andrew Castle returned. Of course, they're not quite the side that they were at the start of this season. They've had some exceptionally good results since Andrew Castle came back. So, in a way, it's a great opportunity for the fans, in the sort of South Gloucestershire area to come and have a look at what will be a really competitive game of Western League Premier Division football. Yes, it will be. It will be, and and we'll be having a go at them. Our confidence is up after the 2 wins, and we'll be trying to get 3 wins Saturday. And if we can play like we've done the last 2 games, I can see Buckland are going to be in for a game because I think we should be on top of our game Saturday. Now, one final question for you, Andy. A week or so ago, we spoke to Jamie Manley, the manager of Bridport, and you mentioned the Bridport game as being a bit of a turning point for you with the disappointment of that defeat. But Jamie sort of gave us an insight into the goings on between the managers in the Western League, and he mentioned a conversation that you had about the state of the Premier Division in the Western League this season. Now, I've sort of suggested before that we're seeing it's been a theme on this year's podcast that that the Premier Division is probably as strong as it's been since we've been doing this particular podcast. But I just wondered, from your perspective, what was your take on what you and the likes of Bridport were coming up against this season? Yeah, I think it's been difficult. I think there's a little bit of a gulf in sort of like the top 6 and the rest of us. But then it's no different to the Premier League, is it, really? When you look at the teams like Norwich and Watford, they know they're going to be in the bottom 8 and try and fight for that. And I suppose you could probably look at our league that way as well. There's lots of teams I've been impressed with. I've been impressed with Plymouth, Exmouth, Tavistock. There's some strong sides in it, really strong sides. Going back 3 or 4 years ago, you used to have 4 or 5 sides who weren't very strong, but there's no easy game. There's no easy game at all. So it's a really competitive league. In previous editions of the podcast, I've referred to Hallen as the Leicester City of the Western League. They're going exceptionally well. But do you think then that the model then for teams that perhaps find themselves in the lower reaches of the Western League Premier Division is more the Sheffield United, that actually if you can find a good team ethos and if you can find a way to win ugly, then actually it's possible for teams from lower down the league to challenge some of the bigger boys? Yeah, I think so. I've been impressed with Shepton Mallet as well. They've got some good players and they play the game in the right way. I think they've had a good season as well, but it's hard to keep stabilising that. Whether Hallen having a good season now, it's very hard to stabilise that year in, year out, or improve it. That's what we all try and do. We all try and get a good side. Hopefully we can build on it this year and be more competitive next year. But, like I said, if we can finish mid-table, we've been more than happy this year.
Excellent.
Because we're developing a lot of young players.
And is that the pathway then for Cadbury?
Yes, that is the pathway, yeah. We're looking to develop young players and build a good team spirit and look to push up the table.
Andy, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to the podcast. Good luck. Well, good luck for the rest of the season. Hopefully, we'll catch up before the end of the season. But it'd be fascinating to see how the rest of the season pans out for you.
Okay, many thanks.
Another job, another saving. Brought to you by Toolstation.
Is this all the receipts?
Yes, boss.
For everything we got from Toolstation?
Yeah, why?
I just thought we'd spend a lot more than this.
Oh, no. We got all the best brands too. Makita, Santex, Karcher, Nest.
Top job, top saving.
With over 15,000 trade-quality products at prices that are hard to beat, we're here to save you on every job. At toolstation.com and all 340 branches.
Now moving into the First Division, and we kick off with a 5-goal thriller at Ashton and Backwell. Calne Town were the visitors, but it was the hometown fans that went home happy.
Yeah, eventually. Had to do it the hard way. Calne obviously towards the top of the table, and made it a good start to this one, going 2 goals up. Jake Allen putting them in front before Aaron Whittle then supplied a looping header towards the end of the first half to put his side 2 up at the break. Looking like a good away win for Calne, but Ashton and Backwell had other ideas. And it was Jacob Spence who halved the deficit to get them on the score sheet, and then 2 goals in the final 7 minutes, completing a pretty dramatic comeback. James White with a contender for goal this season, and then Joe Bishop right at the death. Pretty remarkable comeback for Ashton and Backwell, and it's Calne who go down to a 3-2 defeat.
Now, our next game is the game that I was at, Devizes Town. Yes, very much so. They took on lowly Bristol Telephones. And, Tom, this was a real game of 2 halves. Yeah,
indeed. 4 goals after the break for Devizes, helping them claim a 5-2 victory over Bristol Telephones. I'd say it was probably a much-needed 3 points for the home side. Ali Bradley scoring pretty early on for Devizes before the away side managed to cancel that one out. But then 9 minutes into the second half, the home side managed to restore their lead. Chris Allen scoring from the spot to make it 2-1. Matt Swan then extended the lead on the hour mark with Bradley's second, pretty much putting the result beyond doubt, making it 4-1 to Devizes. Bristol Telephones did manage to get another goal back to set up a slightly nervy ending. But it was, Devizes managed to complete the scoring. Jordan Anning, I think it was, with the 7th and final goal of the match, and first league victory since the end of September. So very much an important 3 points for Devizes.
Yeah, and very much a nervy first half as well. I thought Devizes were going to settle after they scored that opening goal, but to their credit, Bristol Telephones very much stuck to their task and they played their way back into the game. I wasn't entirely convinced with the validity of their equaliser. I shall say no more than that, other than the fact that the linesman had a better view than I did. But anyway, the 2 sides went in at 1-1 at half-time, as you say, and you never quite know how that's going to affect either side, really. I mean, still everything to play for in the game, and I did worry a little bit that Devizes might be a little bit frustrated by that first half performance and coming in level at the break, but it wasn't to be the case. They started really, it was a sort of a 10-minute period. It was it was fantastic stuff. And you mentioned the goal there by Matt Swan, that was an absolute belter. It would have graced any ground, any team in either division, and probably higher. In fairness, it was an absolute belter. And I think from the home fans' perspective, we all felt that really the game was done and dusted when that one went in. Plenty of huffing and puffing went on after that, and we did get to see a couple more goals, but certainly it was a happy day in the Devizes bar after that victory. Probably less so for Bristol Telephones, who may well have targeted that game as an opportunity to get some valuable points on the board, but they certainly showed enough that if they can get their confidence back, I think they'll be a handful for some of the sides in in the First Division. So, as always, a very pleasant afternoon spent in the heart of Wadworthshire. And here ends the party political broadcast on behalf of Devizes Town. And we'll move on to a 4-goal thriller between two sides of very strong pedigree at the opposite end of the table than the one we've just been discussing. Sherborne Town against Longwell Green Sports, and very little, if anything, to separate these two sides come the final whistle, Tom.
Yeah, ended Desmond, a 2-2 draw there between Sherborne and Longwell Green. A pretty good game from all accounts. And it was Longwell Green, the away side, who managed to go ahead in the early stages of this one. Sam Crum putting them into a 12-minute lead. But Sherborne managed to hit back after, obviously, they had that late heartbreak last Saturday. But Alex Murphy very much doing the business for them at the moment. He managed to level the scores. And then it was Joe Smith scrambled the ball home in the closing stages of the first half. So Sherborne 2-1 up at the break. But Longwell Green, our league leaders, did manage to hit back. Crum bagging his second of the game 5 minutes after the restart, and then 40 minutes of the remainder, neither side managed to grab another goal. So that was how it stayed, a 2-2 draw between Sherborne and Longwell Green.
Now, before we move on to our last featured game, I did want to talk about Welton Rovers against Allmans. Well, these are two sides that we haven't had on the podcast this season so far, and I thought it was about time we put that right. So I took this opportunity to speak to Welton Rovers manager Jared Greenhalgh. I started off by asking Jared whether that result was as frustrating as the scoreline might suggest.
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating. So first half was a bit scrappy, and then second half we created more chances. We couldn't quite finish. We couldn't quite get one goal, and I think if we'd have got one, we'd have won the game. Almondsbury offered not a lot, to be honest, going forward, but they were quite well organised. We were lacking, I think, just a little bit of creativity up front, and so it's a bit disappointing, really. I wanted to get a second, back-to-back win. So
no goals to speak of, but that does mean that you had a clean sheet, and you haven't had one of those for a while, so that must have been a positive for you.
Yeah, we've worked quite hard on getting a bit more solid. I think we were a little bit too open at the beginning of the season, so we've worked on that. And if you look at the results, really, going back, apart from Longwell Green, where we had a bit of a nightmare, I think we've conceded one goal now in each of the games, really, up until, like I said, apart from the Longwell Green game, really. So, yeah, we're getting solid at the back. We've got to put away teams, and I think, we've got to put our chances away a little bit better. And that will then start pushing us, turning ones into threes, really.
Obviously, you mentioned that game against Longwell Green, but since then you had a win over Devizes and a good draw away to Wells, who were going great guns earlier this season. I mean, do you feel that your season's been a little bit stop-start so far?
I think we had the start of the season. We didn't have a great start, although we won the first game. We're trying to change quite a few bits, quite a lot, quite quickly within the club and within the team. You look at it now, it's quite a young team. They need to find their feet and they need to gel together, really, which I think they're doing now. And I think you're seeing that in the performances. Maybe not so much in the results at the minute. We're still a bit up and down. Some frustrating ones. I thought Wales, if whoever watched the Wales game, it's a good game, actually, to be fair. Same as when we went down to Cheddar. We drew down at Cheddar and it's a good game. Devizes, we should have put them away second half, and we didn't, and we almost conceded right at the end. And again, Almondsbury, we were never really in trouble. It was just we just didn't put our chances away. The Longwell Green was a standalone game. We threw that game away. We didn't really lose it. We gave it to them.
You're 14th in the league at the moment, but where would you like to see the side finish at the end of the season?
It's an interesting question, really. I've not really put any position on it. I think they're well capable of putting the team's well capable of finishing in the top six. I think if we're a top 8 finish, we can build on that for next season. Like I said, we put ourselves a little bit behind the 8 ball the first probably 6-7 games where we lost to teams that are below us currently. And if we'd have won those 3 games, we'd have been near the top half. And we are currently mid-table, really. I think the league's quite interesting this year. It's quite closed up. I think 2 or 3 wins, and you suddenly go from I think 5th place is 6 or 7 points ahead of us at the minute. So I think the league is really squashed up, and I think it'd be interesting to see who actually comes out on top actually this year. But I think, in answer to your question, if we finish in the top 6, I'd be very pleased with them. I think it'd be a good season, a good start.
Now, we've talked so far about your games against Longwell Green and Wells, and you mentioned Cheddar, and I know you've given Caen the league leaders, or actually they were the league leaders before Longwell Green overtook them. You've given them a good game as well. So which teams that you've come up against so far, which teams have impressed you the most?
I think certainly Longwell Green have got the experience in there, and they're well organised, and I think Luke Bryan up front gives them something that's a little bit better than most of the other teams. I think I think Wells going forward were really good. I like they've got some players that obviously played higher. So I think those two probably stood out. I think Caen have done a well organised, and they've got a goal scorer. So I think again they'll be thereabouts. And obviously if Bradstock can keep their strikers fit and keep them firing, which they seem to be at the moment. I know Sam Gregory's out, but I think the two lads they've got up front are decent as well. I think so. It's going to be interesting. I can't really place who's going to win it this year. You know what it's been like the last few years? There's pretty much been 2 or 3 outstanding teams all the way through the leagues. Whereas this year, I don't think there is. I think it's pretty close. But I would expect probably Longwell Green and Wells, in my opinion, to be thereabouts.
Now, we have to talk about your cup form this season because it's been incredibly impressive. You've had wins against Larkhall and Brislington, and you ran Cribbs close. Do you think these results have shown the fans what your Welton side are capable of? Yeah,
I think we seem to play better, certainly against teams that are deemed to be in a higher position than us. I think we do quite well there. I think our system suits that. I think the players suit that as well. Like I said, our front 4 is quite young, so I think they get a little bit. Personally, I think they get a little bit more time when they play against the better side. So the organisation is slightly different in the teams that we play. Like when we play Larkhall and Brislington, the organisation is slightly different. So it gives them a little bit more. I think a little bit more space and to be a little bit more creative, and that's what they like. And I think that helped. That really helped us. I think we went toe to toe with both of them, really, Briz and Larkhall. I didn't think there was much between the sides. I think we rode our luck a little bit with Larkhall, but and then they're a very good side. But I thought Briz I thought it was a pretty close game, to be honest. So yeah, I think there's a lot that can come from. There's a lot more to come from the team. Like I said, I hope people who are watching realise, like I said, that what we try to do is really bring the age down and bring it back to local community, local players, and give those young lads a chance, really, so that they can show what they can do. And I think if you do that, we'll become strong second half of the season. And I think into next season they'll be very strong.
Now you've got Lebec up next. That's followed by. By Hengrove, and those. What's interesting about those two fixtures is that's two teams that are around you. So when you're fighting it out with sides that are in the same position as you in the table, looking for points, does that make those games harder?
No, just take each game as it comes. I think each one's got their merits. I think the difficulty we've had is probably the teams that are slightly below us, where there's a little bit less structure to the games. I think. If you know Lebec, they've got a really strong forward line. Going forward, they're pretty strong, but they're open to counters. So you kind of know what you're getting with those guys. Hengrove, I haven't even seen this season. It's a shame, really. I wanted to go over. I think, is Jamie still the manager there? Or is he taken back over? I don't know.
Jamie Hillman?
Yeah, so again, they'll be well organised. I think they've had a bit of a rough ride with players and stuff, but they'll be well organised as well. So I don't think there's many. When we played Devices, I didn't think they were awful, and they're down near the bottom. Even Telephones had some bright parts about them. I think the league is really. I think the league is quite tight. I think you've seen that. Some of the results, you'll know, some of the results are just bizarre. When the third place team, I think it was Wincanton, got put 6 past. And you're like, where did that come from? So I think it's. I think everyone can really do something against each other. I don't think there's not a barn split in this league. I think every game's pretty tough. I think you've just got to try and work out a way to get past that particular team. So, in answer to your question, not really. I don't mind if we're playing Wells or Longwell Green, or whether we're playing Telephones. So we kind of approach it in the same way, really.
Now, we can't have a conversation without talking about the Boxing Day fixture.
Who's that against?
It's that mob up the road. The Coalfield Classico, of course, and it's one that I've talked about before at length on the podcast, because I know how important it is in the communities of Midsummer Norton and Radstock, and you see that in the gates. I think there'll be plenty of people listening to this thinking, why on earth is he talking about a Boxing Day clash between two First Division sides? When there is massive games going on in Devon, to sort out the destiny of the Premier Division. But it really is a huge game, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah, it's actually it's my first one actually. But yeah, it is, because I think there's a good rivalry. It's quite friendly actually. I'm always welcome down there. Obviously, I know a lot of the people down at Radstock, and they're always welcome up to Welton. I think they would come up watching Saturday, actually, half of them. So I think it is a big game. In the scheme of things, I think for us, we're on a slightly different trajectory at the moment than Radstock. So I think they're probably overwhelmingly favourites to win the game, especially being at home as well. So I think, from my point of view, it's just us getting out there, doing what we do, not worrying too much about how they play or what they do, and see if we can upset the odds really against them. I mean, they're flying at the moment. I mean, they're banging in goals left, right and centre. Obviously, confidence is pretty high. Undoubtedly favourites for it. But I think we've got players that can do something. So hopefully when we turn up Boxing Day, and the pitch will be decent, I'm sure it will be, and then it'll be a good game for people to come down and watch. And it's always good fun, isn't it, Boxing Day? So.
Before I let you go, Jared, I know you're a manager who's had a lot of experience around the Western League over the years, but for some of the Welton Rovers fans in particular, this will be the first time they've heard you, particularly on the podcast. So, could you tell us a little bit about your journey to the Welton Rovers dugout?
I started coaching with Radstock with Terry Moore a few years ago, it was, and then I went down to Cheddar, where I managed for 3 years. And then we parted company. We had some, obviously, we ran the league very close a couple of times at Cheddar, and then they played the kind of football I think they're still playing now, really, where we try and knock the ball around a little bit. And then we parted company, and I wanted a break, and then I went last year just helping out down at Bishop Sutton just to see if I still was interested, to be honest. And then obviously Malcolm approached me, and it was a bit difficult to turn down, really. I think the club is such a good club. It's and I've been welcomed there, which is great. I think the people that come and watch are fantastic. They get behind the team. The pitch is just brilliant to play on. Even in this weather, it's superb. The club setup's brilliant. The guys that work there, Gareth and Dave and Malcolm and all the guys there, are absolutely superb to me. It certainly brought me back to football, which was good because I'm really enjoying it now.
And my thanks to Jared for his time. Now, finally, in the First Division, Bishop Lydiard. They were at the races. With a name like that, you would have thought they kept their money firmly in their pocket, and they would have been wrong to do so, because they came romping home at Wincanton Town. Really, there was only ever one winner here. We can safely say that the hometown were not at the races.
I'll leave the horse racing anecdotes to you. A 6-1 win for Bishop's Lydiard. So, yeah, fantastic victory for the away side. Wincanton, tough afternoon for them. Ryan Biss scoring their only goal during the opening 20 minutes. But that was as good as it got. Bishop's Lydiard storming to victory. Ben Hebditch, he managed to grab a double. And there was also goals from Charlie Wilson, Ryan Brereton, Mark Clooney, and substitute James Quick also getting in on the action. So a very one-sided victory for Bishop's Lydiard, who returned to some of their early season form where they seem to be scoring a lot of goals. So signs are good for Bishop's Lydiard.
Excellent stuff. Well, that concludes our look back at the fixtures from the weekend. Of course, we now look at the upcoming fixtures, and we're going to start by looking at Saturday the 14th of December. I say we're going to start because actually, for those of you who are looking at the fixture list, you will see that there are two plum ties on Tuesday the 10th of December, particularly in the Premier Division. Bitton take on Clevedon, Buckland are at home to Parkway. However, there's a very good chance that this won't be published until after those games, when we'll all be able to read the match report. So I won't labour that too much. But I will ask you, Tom, if we look at the Premier Division fixtures on Saturday, which games have caught your eye?
Yeah, so the game that stood out to me most was, Hallen against Shepton Mallet. Obviously, Mallet, 2 big wins now on the bounce, scoring a fair few goals. As I say, Jack Fillingham back amongst the goals himself. A couple of braces recently. But they travel to take on a Hallen side who are now unbeaten in 8, so a tough nut to crack. But Hallen at home, fancy extending that run against, as I say, a Shepton side that are full of confidence at the moment. So that looks like an absolute cracking fixture.
I do have access to the computer during this conversation, and I really would like to look up the results from last season, because I've got a sneaking suspicion that Brislington caused an upset against Plymouth Parkway last season. Now, I might be wrong, but Brislington play Parkway on Saturday. And, I'd be very interested to see the result of that game. That's not going to be my pick of the fixtures. My pick of the fixtures, having bigged them up so much at the beginning of the podcast, is going to be Romanglass St George. They are away to high-flying Clevedon Town. I think this will be a very competitive game. So that's going to be my pick of the fixtures. But I will be fascinated to see what the result is between Brislington and Parkway. Anyway, in the First Division, Tom, what game there has caught your eye? I
have Plump 4, Longwell Green. Top spot, so a little bit of a boring choice. But they take on Ashton and Backwell. Obviously had that stirring comeback victory over Calne on Saturday. So taking on a couple of the top sides in back-to-back games and travelling to take on Longwell Green. Full of confidence, and interesting to see if Ashton can create another big victory for themselves.
Well, Warminster Town could certainly do with a win against Portishead Town in the league to get them firing in some sort of form commensurate with what they've been doing in the cup competitions. But the game that, if I'm looking for competitive, then the game I'm going to go for is Lebec against Welton Rovers. These are two teams that find themselves in similar positions in the league, and I think that would be a good game. I think Welton Rovers are a very difficult side to beat, and I think Lebec probably target those home games as their opportunity to pick up points. So I think that would be very competitive. Right then, well, that's a look at the upcoming fixtures. Now, we had a good look at the league table last week, so we're going to have a look at the hot shots. So do you want to take us through who is hot in the Western League, Tom?
Who is hot? So in the Premier Division, league goals only this. We've got Adam Carter of Plymouth Parkway, still quite a long way out in front. He's got 22 league goals, ahead of Jack Fillingham, who I've mentioned a couple of times during this broadcast. He's got 13 league goals now. He's overtaken a couple of chaps. Lucas Fowles of Clevedon is on 12, and then we've got a couple of guys on 11. We've got Gary Higdon of Bradford, and Nikel Plummer, who's recently joined Brislington from Bradford. So he's got 11 if you include his goals for both clubs this season. In the First Division, it's James Rustle. Obviously scored a penalty in Radstock's big Friday night victory, so he's up to 17 league goals. Harry Foster of Wales didn't play on the weekend. He's on 14. And then Carl's Stuart Windsor is on 12. So that's in the First Division. And then in overall, so competitions including the cups, county cups and everything, I think, going by the FA website, we've got Jack Crago leading the way. He's on 27 goals in all competitions. Obviously a brace for him on the weekend in Tavistock's big 7-1 victory, so that certainly helps him extend his lead at the top. 27, as I say. And then we've got James Rustle of Radstock, who I mentioned just then, on 22. Adam Carter also on 22. And then, some of the similar names, Foster of Wells and Higdon of Bradford, both on 19. Fillingham of Shepton on 18, and then Jack Taylor of Bridgewater. He's having a really good season. He's got 16 goals.
Now, a little bit of any other business for you before we close this week's edition. The Les Phillips Cup draw has been made. We haven't laboured it because there's still quite a few matches to be decided, and I think we'll wait until such time as we've got a clear idea who'll be playing in the quarter-final. Don't worry, listeners, you're not missing out on anything because those ties won't be played until the 18th and 19th of February, so we have got a little bit of time to wait for that. I'm sure you can find it on social media if you look hard enough, and indeed I'm sure it's on the league's website as well. So
and the bulletin.
And the bulletin.
Of course.
Of course. But we will wait until we've got the definitive roundup.
Yeah. Lots of balls.
Yeah, very much so. And we are, you know, I am very nervous that I'm going to lose my co-commentator for the cup final because Alan is still in it. But anyway, there we go. We wait to see whether that happens. The other thing I wanted to mention was the fact that the Respect Award for the first, I think it's quarter of the season, has been presented by League Director Sue Merrill, and it's gone to Radstock Town, and it went. The presentation was made to their skipper Luke Ingram. So hats off to Radstock Town for that. We have, of course, Tom, as you quite rightly point out, been reviewing your excellent bulletin. Where can the listeners find that?
So that is on the Toolstation League website, of course. There's a tab along the top, and there's also a way to download it if it's about halfway down the page on the home page. As I say, you can download that as a PDF, and you can also get it in Word format if you so please. So yeah, that comes out every week, looking back over what's happened and also looking ahead to the games over the coming week.
Excellent stuff. Tom, thank you very much indeed for your time and all your hard work on the bulletin. It is appreciated.
Welcome.
And I look forward to catching up with you next week on the Tool Station Western League podcast.